Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Earthlings, wherever you may be on planet Earth. Wasn't that spectacular state banquet last night? I know I said I wanted to see Catherine wearing a different tiara, but my goodness me, wasn't she divine? Absolutely divine. And I also said to Graham privately, I hope she doesn't wear white, because the Queen always seemed to wear, well, later in life, wore white all the time, and Camilla always white. But I think Catherine surpassed herself. Simplicity, class, beauty. Oh, we have a wonderful Princess of Wales. That is no reflection on the last Princess of Wales, who technically Camilla was, or the late Princess Diana, Princess of Wales. Camilla equally did not disappoint, because instead of wearing one of the, I think she normally wears the Greville tiara. Mrs. Greville was a friend of the Queen Mother and left her loads of jewels, and Camilla has been wearing a couple of the Queen Mother's tiaras, which are great on her because she has big hair and they suit her. She wore the Queen's sapphire set with a gorgeous cornflower blue dress, which I know you've all seen, so really pleased with that. I think Camilla looked a little bit apprehensive, and I'm suspecting that that might have been because she was wearing an item of the late Queen's, and she might have just, I think Charles might have said, come on, you're the Queen. It could have been that, or it could be she had aches and pains or something like that. But Camilla, don't be shy, girl. Don't be shy. Do it. That's what we want to see. I was actually quite horrified. I've been checking the Daily Mail over and over and over, and the Mirror and the Sun, all of them, because you won't get any of the pictures really quickly in papers like the Independent, the Guardian, but you will the Mirror, which is left wing. You will the Sun and the Daily Mail. That, you know, I think there's normally a bit of competition who can get the pictures out quick enough. And finally, we've got the photographs of them all in their regalia, and Sophie looked wonderful as well. I went to the comments, 1,000 comments. Straight away, the article had only been out about 40 minutes. And I was horrified at the comments and the top comments. How can these people rub all this in our faces when the country's starving and struggling to heat itself? Yes, valid points, but I'd like to make a couple of points. They are representing our entire country and the Commonwealth. What would you prefer? They served beans on toast in slashed jeans and dirty t-shirts. Really? I think the epitome of the most moronic comment I saw on it, and I have to believe this was written by a robot that doesn't understand anything, said, yet another racist state banquet with not a face of colour amongst it. That's what the comments said. Well, I don't think that robot understands the concept of skin colour, because the two guests of honour, the President of South Africa and his lady wife, are both people of colour. Our Prime Minister and his wife are both people of colour. And there were many people of colour there. I think King Charles did a wonderful job. I'm sure his mother would have approved. So I'd like to explain something as to why us monarchists are so important, because we can never allow the British monarchy to fall. And I will try and explain. But before I do, I am by no means a historian. If anybody wants to know actual facts about European monarchies, how they were deposed or abdicated, or how their history went down, my top recommendation would be Lady C, or another historian who is an expert on the subject. I am not. I have spent many years sort of going through Wikipedia, and I've got a vague idea. And today, this morning, I have been going through Wikipedia and other websites, looking up other European royal families, and also the Cambodian royal family as well, because I want to make my own tiara, so you can get an idea of the sort of design I'm looking to go down that road. So before we start, I'd like to explain some things to some people out there who support the idea of having a republic. And they make comments on social media about gold pianos and an inordinate expense, and that King Charles spent far too much money on the food last night, making desserts, the petit fours, that were the national flower of South Africa, as an honour to his guest. I'd just like to point out some bleeding obvious things. We, in our household, use silver domes. I use these because we live in a hot country. My family quite often won't come to the table, so I plop it over the plate, keeps the flies off it, keeps it fresh for the day, and they come and eat it throughout the day. Guess what? This is not made of silver. I guess it's stainless steel or something. It costs €5 from the local cash and carry Chino's shop, but it is not silver. Equally, I wanted some oval frames for my dining room. Oval picture frames are really expensive the bigger they get. So I bought a cheap plastic mirror tray, and I'm going to mount a picture in that and hang 2 of them on my wall in my dining room. This is not made of gold, okay, any more than this is made of silver. Equally, this morning I've picked some flowers from our garden, actually the neighbour's garden, because they're all growing over. I'm certain he won't mind because he died of COVID in 2019. So I picked some of his very pretty flowers, like King Charles asked them to pick some flowers from Buckingham Palace Gardens, and they put them on the banquet with a clean tablecloth and also some nice clean knives and forks, and these are not solid silver. They're not even silver plated any more than this is silver or silver plated, or that this is gold. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm ramming a point home. Who are these people on social media who make such ridiculous comments that our royal family are far too opulent and that they shouldn't be putting on a good show for foreign dignitaries on behalf of the government, the elected democratic parliament? And obviously they put on a nice dress, and as for the royal jewels, they're all hand-me-downs. It's not like they buy new ones every year. They've been in the family, some of them for hundreds of years, some of them nearly 1,000 years. So it's not exactly a Marie Antoinette court. Now, coming back to Cambodia, because I really got into this because of these comments on the Daily Mail, because when I was little, I remember a guy called Pol Pot. Anyone when they were a kid like me probably remember the film The King and I, with Yul Brynner and Deborah Kerr, all about a Victorian lady going to meet the King of Siam, as it was then, to teach his children and wives European ways. It is a highly fictionalised version of what actually happens, but it's a nice story and very palatial. And I grew up with that, and I just loved the King of Siam. The Queen of Cambodia. Now, in Cambodia, they can't have a female monarch, but they did have a Queen of Cambodia. She was the king's mother. Well, I think he called himself the prince. She was an extremely popular lady. She was very charitable. She was concerned about the people. Cambodia is so rich in glorious history. And along came a guy called Pol Pot, who was a communist, who decided everybody had to wear the same colour, no one was allowed to have money, the people in the cities could go and work in the fields, and I think he even wanted to abolish money and currencies. A pure communist society. Guess what? It didn't end well. About 1.5 million to 2 million citizens died. Google it. Younger people, people of all ages, if you've never heard of Pol Pot before. It is an ideology I hear coming from the left, and I am left-wing, very often. Oh, these rich people off with their heads and spread the wealth amongst the poor. It's the stuff of fairy tales. Now then, that got me onto other things of European royalty. and kingdoms, and I love Cinderella and all that sort of stuff. So I went through a few of them, and I'm going to continue going through them, and I highly recommend. I know Wikipedia can be a little dodgy, but I find it's a good signposter to give me a rough idea, because again, Wikipedia is a bit like me. It might be full of shit, so double check it. Bavaria I found the most interesting, actually. The last monarch of Bavaria, apparently, was a guy called Ludwig III. And it all ended for him round about the First World War, actually. For a lot of the monarchies in Europe, if it didn't end around the First World War, it ended around the Second World War. Enormous political upheaval of either fascism or communism or extreme ideas. Ludwig III apparently, and there is dispute whether this is true or not, had a young recruit apply saying, "Can I fight in your army?" on Bavaria's behalf in the First World War, called Adolf Hitler. And apparently Ludwig III said, yeah, why not? So Hitler served in the First World War in the Bavarian army. Well, that probably wasn't such a good idea, Ludwig, apart from the fact that he wasn't a very nice guy, as things turned out. It wasn't exactly Hitler who overthrew, well, it wasn't at all. There was a revolution, and they decided they were going to have a republic, and they had a government and lots of disputes and arguments and blah, blah, blah after the First World War, which culminated actually into the Third Reich. Estonia and Lithuania I looked up as well. They've had various rulers and monarchs. Of course, Tsars of Russia, or that there have been some other monarchs. Greece, of course, we all know from our late Prince Philip. He was part of the Greek royal family. Had to be smuggled out in either an orange crate or a lemon crate, I can't remember. Again, that was a dodgy situation. And then we've got Albania. Albania is an interesting one, because I was reading an article this morning where the line of the monarchy has actually returned. And although they're not recognised officially as the monarch, look up the Albanian royal family. It is really interesting. They live there, they're accepted of what they are and who they are. They have absolutely no powers, no sort of functions or anything. But bit by bit, European countries have been inviting monarchies back. Now, from what I can tell, yes, some monarchies have been terrible and have been their own downfall. But many of them, once the monarchy was gone, you get things like wars in the Balkans, if anybody's my age who remembers that. Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia. There's been terrible kick-offs all over Europe, and many wars and many disputes. There is a lot to be said for having a head of state, and I think that our monarchy is a very fine example. And that's why all of you who support the British monarchy, any monarchy, and that ethos, you are very important. Be vocal on social media. Embrace it. Another interesting thing, because I do recall being very shocked at the time about the cost of building the Scottish Parliament. I'm not getting into an argument about Scottish independence or Nicola Sturgeon, the SNP, or anything political, but they built the Scottish Parliament, which cost something like £414 million. That's a lot of money. I'm not saying that the UK Parliament isn't expensive, but think about these things. Who are you going to replace a monarchy with? Be very careful what you wish for. Equally, I tried to look up the costs of the breakdown of the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish legislature. The website that I found, which is theirs, it's not mobile friendly on my phone. I have to expand it, then the PDF files don't work. The headings are incredibly confusing. It looks like 100 accountants twisted it all up and made it very confusing. Whereas if you go to the royal website, and I will put a link in the description, they are really transparent with the cost of our monarchy and the sovereign grant. Thoughts, opinions below. Thank you for listening.